I often get asked, how do we put these credit card points to the best use for travel redemptions? And look, I try to have these conversations with my wife and my close friends, but they just look at me like I'm a crazy person talking CrossFit or vegan lifestyle. Now, mind, I'm a small blip on the radar in the YouTubosphere of credit card creators and travel influencers, but I travel 2 to 4 times per month for work and another 4 to 6 times per year with the wife and kids. So I earn a lot of points and I try to spend them as wisely as possible. I'm not one of those that looks for 10 plus cent per point redemptions with every single trip that I take. I travel when I want to, where I want to, and I've worked hard to get to this point, and I hope to be able to share some of that back with you. So these may not be the best cent per point redemptions in the world, but the key here is to create incredible memories and hopefully leverage technology to steer you in the right direction of what redemptions are attainable. But these are pretty good redemptions, and stick around until the end. I'm going to talk about how we can link status to some airline alliances to make sure that you aren't spending unwisely. Now, I'm a sucker for Europe, and I always have been. I've been to over a dozen countries and have been fortunate enough to run with the bulls in Pamplona and survive it to tell the tales, experience some of the most incredible beaches in Greece, see the Red Bull air races on the Danube in Budapest, and propose to my wife in Venice. I didn't always know how to find good redemptions for these trips. Hell, for half of them, I didn't even know what credit card to use to pay for things. So if you're watching this video, you're already way ahead of where I was. So back to the redemptions. First, London. Great city, never been there for an extended period of time, and it's never really been at the top of the list. I think a big reason is because Heathrow is such a nightmare to travel into. Amsterdam, however, has always been near the top of the list for me, and I just can't wait any longer. So those are the main 2 cities that we're going to be traveling to for this trip, London and Amsterdam. Now, I wanted to go to both of these cities over the holidays to see the Christmas villages and all that, and I'm not opposed to that this year as well, but I think my wife and I may go to Strasbourg, Prague, and Vienna next year to see all the Christmas markets and all that wonderful stuff, so comment if you've experienced that. So my sights have been set on flying with Virgin. I've flown American Airlines a bunch of times across the pond, along with United, Lufthansa, and Air Canada, but never Virgin. So I want to show you the redemptions that I made here, and this is primarily centered around American Express membership rewards points and also using some of the credits with the Platinum card to transfer out to airlines, and then also use the hotel credit with Fine Hotels and Resorts, but then also some Chase points to book a Hyatt stay in London. And just remember, whether it's 2 cents per point or 12 cents per point, if the value looks good to you and it's a trip you want to take it. So first up with the outbound flights, from Tampa to Heathrow, we could have gone direct on Virgin, but it's on one of the older Airbus aircraft right now. And I don't know if you've seen this layout. It's in like a 111 configuration. Definitely YouTube it and check out some of the videos before you book a flight on one of these in business class. The Airbus 330-900 Neos and the 350-1000s both have a newer layout, and the Neos have the enclosed suites. So that's what I was looking to fly on. And in order to do this, the best place for us to reposition to was New York JFK. And I know what you're thinking, JFK, not the best airport, a little chaotic, but we're gonna have plenty of time with the layover, and they fly these aircraft like every hour between there and London. They also have a Chase Sapphire Lounge, and I have the RITZ card, so we may not even have to experience the Virgin Clubhouse there, even though we'll just pop in to see what it's all about to compare the two. So the cash price for this JFK to Heathrow flight on Virgin was €1,612, or around $1,760 US. Not bad for business class, but not really something that I want to pay out of pocket. So I'm going to show you some different screenshots that I captured during the booking and travel redemption process here. So for the points redemption, it costs 75,000 points each, plus €189 in fees. So just over $200 for an upper class seat on Virgin. Now with the calculations here at €1,612 minus €189 in taxes and fees, this brought the total to €1,423 or $1,555 US, divided by 75,000 flying blue miles. This was just over a 2 cent per point redemption. Now, there was also a similar redemption I could have made through the Virgin site, but it would have just required a lot more in taxes and fees, which I'll show you for the return flight. Now, there were some better redemptions that I could have made. Like I could have flown from JFK to Frankfurt on Singapore, just over a $2,500 business class seat for 81,000 Chris miles. So just shy of 3 cents per point on that redemption. But I wanted to fly on Virgin. I wanted to fly this specific aircraft. at this specific time. So that's why I made the redemption that I did. For the return flight back to the US, a couple things went into play here. One, when I land back in the US, I want to either be in Tampa or at an airport that's closer to Tampa. And the other thing with me, I'm a sucker for airport lounges. So I wanted to land at an airport with a lounge that I haven't been to or that I know is super high quality. So we're going to connect back in Atlanta, which is just over an hour flight from Tampa, and hopefully visit that Centurion lounge. So I'm willing to pay for my wife to get in that lounge with me. So for this, we're going to fly on one of Virgin's other newer aircraft, the Airbus 350-1000 from Heathrow to Atlanta, and check out these redemptions. So the cash price for these upper class seats from Heathrow to Atlanta was wild. 13,640 British pounds for two, or 6,820 pounds each. That's north of 8,700 US per person. And this is where I think that the cent per point calculations can be completely outlandish. Who in their right mind would pay this for a flight? I guess somebody, considering they have them priced at this. But the points required was 115,000 Virgin points plus 1,248 pounds or 1,601 US dollars. So taking that cash price of the ticket minus the taxes and fees, still north of a $7,900 ticket here. This required only 57,500 points via Virgin per person. So doing the quick math here, that's north of a 13 cent per point valuation. Now, is this a wildly better redemption? Yes. Is this a wildly better flight? Well, that's to be determined. But I did get to check the box of a crazy, outlandish cent per point redemption. People just love to talk about these things and show you that you can somewhat beat the system. But these airlines have dynamic pricing for these reasons. And somehow I think that this is just the airlines playing this point redemption game with us. I did this more for the convenience in the return airport than anything else, but I guess this does make me look a little bit more credible. So a couple things here, and this is the more important stuff. First, I used point.me to make sure there wasn't something I missed in terms of the best possible redemptions out there and the methods in order of which to transfer my points. But I pretty much knew that it was either down to Virgin or Air France KLM Flying Blue for where I was going to transfer my points, considering that I wanted to fly on the Virgin flights. So now to show you the points that I transferred for these flights. So 150,000 went to Flying Blue for the Virgin flights, and you can see that another 15,000 points went for a flight redemption on KLM within Europe. Now these are for two people, mind you. And 115,000 points went from American Express to Virgin. And it says the transfers can take up to 48 hours, but both of these were pretty much instant transfers. I think it took 2 or 3 minutes. And one thing to mention with Air France Flying Blue, I did have to call them to complete the booking for the rewards redemptions, but it was less than a 5-minute phone call. They're super professional and helpful, so not a big deal whatsoever. And for booking Virgin via Flying Blue, all you have to do is take your record locator and enter that under the My Bookings tab on Virgin, and it'll link that flight for you, and then you can select your seats. Really easy. So one of the flights that I booked between London and Amsterdam was via British Airways and the British Avios. Now, I could have gone about this entire process, selected my seats and paid for those, and paid for checked bags if I would have just gone about the booking via British Airways without linking my American Airlines loyalty program. Now, you can't necessarily do this through British and British Avios. So what I've found is the best website to do this is when you make that booking through British Airways. Once you have that, don't select your seats, don't pay for those things, but then go to the Finnair website. And Finnair is now a partner of the One World Alliance. And you can enter, and I'll show you the steps here. So first, you're going to select manage your booking, and then you're going to enter your record locator or booking reference along with your last name, and that'll actually pull up your record. From there, on the left-hand side, if you select passenger details, it will pull up you and anybody else on this reservation. And if you select yourself and you have status, you can actually change the frequent flyer program associated with this booking reference. So what I did was I selected American Airlines. I entered my membership number that linked my status to this record. So then when I went back into the British site, I was able to select seats that were main cabin extra or economy plus, just depending on what you're used to. And I could check bags at no additional cost because of my status with One World Emerald. So a couple of additional steps, but well worth it for the money that you're going to save. So the last part of the trip here is the hotels and the hotel redemptions. First with Amsterdam, I could have gone through the normal channels here. I wanted to stay at the W Amsterdam. and I could have used Marriott points along with my 85K free night award for this W for 3 nights. But I always check on American Express to see who's a part of the hotel collection or Fine Hotels and Resorts. And I saw that the W Amsterdam is part of the hotel collection, and they had an elevated $150 experience credit versus the normal $100 credit. Not that big of a difference with $50, but it was something that I wanted to get that $200 hotel credit from American Express and go ahead and use that on this trip. So I booked the W Amsterdam for 2 nights. So I received that $200 hotel credit from American Express and that elevated $150 experience credit through making the booking this way. Now, once I made the booking, I was able to include my Marriott loyalty number, and I made 1 additional night booking with an 85K free night award from my RITZ CARLTON card. So I combined those 2 powers together for 3 nights in total. I did call the hotel, and they are going to be able to link the reservations together to give me an upgraded suite. So I'm really excited about that. I'm not going to go into the cent per point calculation. It's just too much for me to figure out with using the $200 hotel credit, getting that experience credit, using the 85K free night award, combining all of these things together. But it was about $1,200 in total out of pocket for the 3 nights to stay in an upgraded room at a property that I've been eyeing for a long time. And then for London, I was looking at some of the Marriott properties there. I have a lot of Marriott points, and I was going to use some of them for some nights at the W Hotel or some of the other Marriott properties. But I did want to get a little bit outside of my comfort zone. And I made some recent modifications. I was going to take the family to the Bahamas. 2 days prior to the trip, I decided to cancel all of that reservation just because of the reviews I've seen of the Grand Hyatt Baha Mar. Just seems very expensive, overhyped, and with the weather and things like that are rolling through, I moved our trip to Cancun, and we're staying at one of the newly renovated Marriott all-inclusives down there. I'll certainly report back on my reviews of that property. So it did open up some of my Hyatt points, and just so happened that the 116,000 points that I was going to use for that Grand Hyatt Baha Mar, I had available 3 nights at this property, the Andaz in London, for one of the suites, one of the upgraded rooms. This suite would have cost me exactly 116,000 points. So you can see here, really trendy, cool looking property. I'm not familiar with these particularly. I know it's not in the location that the W London is, but it's so easy to use public transportation in London, and I did want to try a new property, this being an upgraded suite. I'm going to give it a go. So the 3 nights here, 116,000 Hyatt points. The cent per point valuation I'll show on the screen here ends up being right around 2 cents per point. So still good use of the money and the points for me. So I tried to come up with a grand total cent per point valuation on this trip. Really difficult to do with the positioning flights, both in the US and in Europe, and paying some of the hotels out of pocket in order to get the hotel credit from American Express and the $150 experience credit at the property. But even excluding that, just focusing on the parts that we covered with points, that was north of $22,000 in cash, $19,000 and change of that being on flights, and $3,000 plus of that being on hotels. So if we look at the total points used, the 85K free night award, and then the other points from Hyatt, from Virgin, and Air France KLM, the grand total in points used was 466,000 points. Now, if we take the cash total at north of $22,000 divided by the 466,000 points that were used, it may seem like a lot of points, but for a trip like this, it's really not. And the grand total cent per point valuation was 4.77. So I don't know if that's good or bad, but just wanted to give you some context so that you may benchmark one of your future trips. Holler at me if you have questions about the local redemptions, both the flights in the US and in Europe, how some of that all shook out. As I always say, make sure you're redeeming those points, create those incredible memories. Hope you found some value in this, and until next time.